Bring it back.
Good morning. A congressional panel today begins looking into the administration's decision to return Haitian boat people to their island nation. The Haitian Refugee Center is attempting to block the move in court, and a federal judge late yesterday issued a temporary restraining order. The order came after UN officials, congressional leaders, and human rights activists expressed outrage at the administration decision. Over 2,000 Haitians fled their country for the United States after a September military coup. They've been held by the Navy and the Coast Guard from the United States. But the country is sending the Haitians back. They started that Monday, saying that the move was designed to head off the threat of a mass exodus from Haiti to the U.S. Two people join us to look at the problem of Haitians. Daniel Stein is with the Federation for American Immigration Reform. He will be testifying before Congress later today. And from Capitol Hill is Congressman Charles Rangel of New York, a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Congressman Rangel, with you first, sir. What's wrong with sending the Haitians back, especially during a time of deep economic trouble in the United States, sir?
Oh, my God. For a couple of thousand Haitians, we can't talk about how that compares to the deep economic problems we have in these United States. One of the reasons why it's wrong is because we are a country of immigrants. That's what the Statue of Liberty is all about. We are the ones that provided the leadership to the world in condemning the illegal and murderous coup that took place by the Haitian military. We did provide the leadership in getting the economic sanctions and the Office of the Organization of American States to intercede to restore President Aristide. And so as a result of this, we've had a retaliation by the military against Aristide supporters. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people have been shot and killed. And naturally, people are fleeing in fear. They've been picked up by the United States Coast Guard, and we were waiting for some friendly countries to assist us in providing safe haven. But who made this insensitive call to return them back to the villains that they were fleeing from? It's immoral and it's inconsistent with our American policy.
Well, Mr. Stein, what's wrong with give me your poor, your tired, and your huddled masses? We can't afford that anymore, or what?
It's a good question. We've got to adopt a policy with respect to the Haitians which applies to everyone around the planet. We have two issues here. One, is the policy appearing discriminatory?
And
now the Cubans
does it to you?
Well, in terms of the Cubans, it does look discriminatory. We have a de facto open border with Cuba now. But the Haitians we need to treat like we treat everyone all around the planet. Yes, you want to provide protection for people who are truly fleeing political persecution, but you cannot just simply open the borders between here and Haiti. Remember that 20,000 Haitians came legally to the United States as immigrants last year.
But let's deal with the present circumstances.
We do accept immigrants from Haiti, and that policy is not discriminatory.
The present circumstances, as we know them, though, are that a military coup did occur in September.
That's right.
That many people, I'm not sure of the number, Congressman Rangel may be, have been shot and killed, Aristide supporters. These people are fleeing. Seems to me very real political and military situation.
And the U.S. has an excellent track record in not returning people to any country, not only Haiti, who subsequently suffer persecution.
Well, what do you think the position ought to be now?
We've got to provide a system so that we can adjudicate claims, but you can't let everyone in. The South Florida cannot withstand another 10, 20, or 100,000 people just coming in as a result of the coup. You need to provide protection for people and determine who needs protection, but you can't open the borders. And the administration is trying to stop a major exodus like what we had from Cuba in 1980. We've got to be very careful that we don't undermine our foreign policy objectives.
Are Haitians, under the present circumstances, in your view, entitled to
everyone in the country
status or not?
You cannot admit everyone from Haiti into the U.S. as an asylee. You may as well make Haiti a state, if that's what you want to do. You've got to have some regulation over the process. A summary procedure which can adjudicate claims outside the U.S. makes a lot of sense.
And I don't think I'm going to argue with you as relates to general immigration policy, but do you think we would have had this same policy if the people on those waters were European and not Haitians?
We have to correct the appearance of unfairness that does exist within U.S. policy. Do you think
for 1 minute...
two wrongs don't make a right, Mr. Chairman.
No. Do you think for 1 minute, if the Kuwait did not have oil, that we would have broken down our barriers and allowed them to come to the United States? And so what I'm saying is that
Sure.
we have been a flexible country, and I have shown the compassion, and it is true that a lot of people who are not, in the true sense of the word, political refugees have been allowed to enter the country. We have to have rules and to set some standards so that there would not be a complete disregard for our law. But what we're talking about, Dan, are people on the high seas that have risked their lives, pregnant women, fleeing from the villains that we have condemned. To send them back, I'm saying any place but Haiti.
Earlier, Congressman, you're being somewhat subtle now, it seems to me, compared to your earlier comments. You thought, were reported as saying, that this decision by the Bush administration was racist and vicious. How do you justify that, such a strong charge?
Well, I guess I would adjust it. If they were Nigerians and brought some of that oil money with them, I would have said that we would have made adjustments. But being poor and black is very unpopular and very unpolitical. But I tell you one thing, the exciting thing about the role I'm playing and focus attention on this issue is to see conservative Republicans like Connie Mack, the United States Senator from Florida, supporting my position and condemning our government for doing it, to see how Dante Fascell, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and someone who doesn't have Haitians, but he still comes from the Miami area, Larry Smith, Bill Lehman, the entire congressional delegation who truly believe that there is a discriminatory, different policy set for these black, poor Haitians than they are for other people.
Dan, we got to give you a chance to respond to that after this break, because we have to take one right now. Please don't go away. We'll be right back. What, if anything, can be done about the Haitian refugee problem with Congressman Charles Rangel and Dan Stein? Dan, what do you say to the Congressman's charge that, in fact, the immigration policy is discriminatory?
The policy is not discriminatory worldwide. We have to remember the reason the Florida delegation is arguing to admit the Haitians is because they know they're going to get whipsawed by the fact that we've had this open door for Cuba. We've admitted 1 million Cubans in the last 20 years, and our policy has been unfair. We've admitted everybody who's wanted to come from Cuba. But rather than open the floodgates from Haiti or any other country from the overpopulating world, we need to have a policy that makes sense. We should repeal the law which creates this open door between the U.S. and Cuba and start treating all Cubans the way we're treating Haitians and everyone else, which
I'm
is
not talking about changing any immigration
But let me tell you
laws.
what we need to do.
I'm not talking about changing immigration laws.
We do need to change the law.
Well, that is something that I'm not talking about. We can deal with that at another time in another program.
Who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for all these people who need schools and housing and roads? Where are you going to put them, Mr. Chairman?
I am only talking about not sending these people on the high seas back to the ruthless, murderous military government in Haiti. And I'm saying that we can provide leadership without changing our laws.
Is there some precedent, Congressman, for what you think the administration is doing now in other refugee cases?
They've been doing it for 10 years. They've been interdicting Haitians.
You're done live. We did it for the people in Kuwait. We allowed them
what I mean is there some
number.
precedent for returning refugees?
We've been doing it for 10 years. It's nothing new. We've been doing it for 10 years. And you know what, Mr. Chairman?
We've just condemned Great Britain for returning the people back to Hong Kong.
We have to be realistic.
Vietnam,
we have to be realistic.
Yeah, to Vietnam people, Vietnam from Hong Kong. But what I'm saying is we can debate immigration law changes all we want, but it's wrong, it's immoral, it's insensitive to take those people on the high seas and return them to Haiti. Now, there are a lot of things we can do. The president did it in the Persian Gulf. He can start calling up the heads of these nations. He can talk about shared responsibilities. We can get the people in the area, the Organization of American States. But one thing we can't have on our hands is the blood of the people that would be murdered by the villains that we are turning them over to.
If all that were true, if anything you were saying were true, we are not returning people to certain death. Nobody has been returned to Haiti in the last 10 years, has been subsequently shown to be politically persecuted. Our policy has worked. We have to remember one thing, when the Aristide administration came into power, all the people who claimed they were fleeing the Duvalier regime did not go back to Haiti. To believe that any of the people coming today are going to go back is simply folly.
You obviously are not familiar with the fact that after the coup and after Aristide fled, that his supporters, who are the poorest of the poor and the blackest of the black, have been shot down in retaliation. The State Department knows it, the Attorney General knows it, and so what I'm saying
But everyone
is,
who's coming on these boats is not fleeing political persecution.
But if what the congressman is saying about the shootings is true, Dan, then how many dead Haitians does a refugee make?
Well, one is too many, but we've got none at this point. We have to be careful. You have to find a way of deciding who's genuinely fleeing political persecution without opening up the floodgates. Once people come into the U.S., the lawyers get their hands on them. You can't. It took us 10 years to return the criminals from 1980's Mariel boat lift. It's very hard once people get in to remove them.
That you are effectively debating a pre-coup argument that I am not allowing myself to get involved in. What I am saying now is that there is no question that Haitians were killed because of their support for Aristide. And these are the people that are fleeing, and you can't get more political than that.
Well, Congressman,
now, you can't ask people whether they're running away from political bullets or economic bullets while they're standing
What's wrong with having a staging area? Why do we have a staging area in Guantanamo? Or staging areas around the different... See, once they get into the U.S. jurisdiction, onto U.S. soil, they're very hard to remove. The lawyers get their hands on them, and years go by before you can finally return them home.
You know, I wish I was...
That's why we have the interdiction program, because once they get here, you lose control of the process.
I bet you that's what the Indians said when the immigrants
Well, look what
came.
happened to the Indians,
that, you know,
Mr. Rangel. Look what happened to the Indians.
Once they get here, they don't want to leave.
You got to have a
Congressman,
Please understand, Dan, that I am not talking about permanent residence. I'm talking about safe haven. I'm not talking about the United States assuming the full responsibility.
Well,
I'm saying any place but Haiti, and we should provide the leadership to find places.
Let's talk about the responsibility.
Right.
Let's talk about the responsibility of the Congressman. You were saying earlier that you're not talking about legislation. You're not involving yourself in that discussion. If you believe the system and policy is discriminatory, why aren't you talking about legislation?
Because I have legislation. We're having hearings tomorrow that's going to cause this policy to cease and desist. But I don't really think that you have to violate existing law in order to treat these people fairly. You know, racism and prejudice is subjective, and you can change the law all of you want. We allowed people to come in this country when it's convenient without a change in the law, and they were not political prisoners. And I'm saying that by any fair definition, the people fleeing are fleeing a fear of economic persecution. And you can't
There are 3 billion people on the planet who could flee economic repression. Many, many billions of people live under, and they have per capita incomes under $2,000 a year. We have to be reasonable and fair.
They have not been condemned by President Bush.
The only issue here is, are we making sure we do not return people who will suffer political persecution?
And we're also,
I am satisfied the administration has done that and that the policy makes sense.
But how can you be satisfied? Again, we are evading, we're talking about these abstract general issues. Let's talk about what's happening to these more than 2,000 Haitians. Let's talk about the 2,000 Haitians. Excuse me, let me get my question out. The 2,000 Haitians on the high seas now. Basically, as Congressman Rangel pointed out, there is a military threat to the supporters of President Aristide. What do you do to the people on the high seas now under such a threat, in your view?
You take them into a summary procedure so that you determine if they're fleeing persecution. If their claim says, I'm just coming to get a job, or I can't get a job, those are not political refugees. That you can't manage that because of the international migration flow. You've got to have a policy that makes sense for 1990. We can't do again what we've done with Cuba. We've drawn off a million people since Castro took over. You can't just do that and have
I see
any
the Congressman raring at the bit, but we're out of time, and we're going to have to leave it there. I'm sure it's an issue we'll come back to in time. We'll come back. Stay with us.
Through this plan to send them back home to Haiti. President Bush says keeping them will only encourage others to make a very dangerous journey across the sea, trying to get to the beaches of Florida. We will have more on the refugee controversy coming up shortly here on Good Morning America. Other news this morning, western snowstorm.
Spencer, it is now 9 minutes after. There's been a chilling side effect to the military coup in Haiti. Now thousands of desperate people are fleeing its shores, hoping for refuge in America. But because of a decade-long immigration policy, many of these Haitian refugees have been sent back to their country. Earlier this week, a federal judge in Florida ordered a stay in the forced return of the Haitians, and there are now nearly 3,000 refugees who have been picked up at sea, many of whom are waiting for a decision that will decide their fate. Joining us from the Coast Guard base in Miami Beach, Florida, is Rear Admiral Robert Kramick. He is commander of the 7th Coast Guard District. And good morning, Admiral.
Good morning, John.
Why don't you give us the latest update? What are the latest numbers, just the numbers of refugees that have been picked up?
Well, Joan, I just returned late last night from the Windward Pass, where I visited my cutters that are on patrol there. And in the last 3 weeks, we've interdicted over 43 Haitian vessels and rescued over 2,800 Haitians.
Now, where are all of these refugees being held now, and what are the conditions like that they're living under?
Well, up until Monday, I had to keep all the refugees aboard Coast Guard cutters, and it created quite a crisis because the cutters were full of Haitians to the extent that I couldn't continue operations. On Monday, I was allowed to repatriate some of the Haitians to Port-au-Prince, but now a judge has placed a temporary restraining order on that action, and I'm filling up the cutters again.
Am I correct in that some of them are in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba?
Yes, we had such an emergency situation with so many people on the ships. We've asked the Navy for help, and we've been able to leave some of the Haitians in Guantanamo Bay. And I was there yesterday while we discharged 2 cutter loads worth of Haitians onto a Navy vessel.
I read that 100 of them that were rescued yesterday was from a boat or a ship that was rapidly sinking. What are the conditions on these boats that the refugees are coming over on?
Well, it's very, very serious, and that's why I call it a crisis. These boats are 20 to 40 feet in length, and some of them have over 200 Haitians on board. They're simply stacked up on top of each other. The vessel has no freeboard. They're taking on water and foundering in the seas, and the conditions now are very rough. In fact, the conditions out there yesterday when I was visiting the cutters were marginal even for getting on and off the flight decks with helicopters. 30 to 35 knots of wind, 10-foot seas with breaking surf on the top, and we're very, very concerned about that.
And I know the weather that's predicted for coming up is not good. Admiral, thank you very much. We're going to be joined now from Washington by Representative Charles Rangel of New York. He opposes the forced return of Haitian refugees to their country. And also joining us from Washington is Dan Stein, Executive Director of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, or FAIR. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Congressman Rangel, our government has stood by this policy of repatriation and returning the Haitians to their country on the grounds that they were fleeing because of economic conditions and not because of political reasons. Do you object to that?
I certainly do, but that's not the issue that I've been addressing in the last couple of days. It really doesn't make any difference to me now whether they're political or whether they're economic refugees. The fact is that we have thousands of people on the high seas, children, pregnant women, and we're returning them to a hostile government. It's a ragtag, vicious army that not only overthrew a democratic regime, but they have been condemned by the UN, by President Bush, by the Organization of American States for their random searching out and shooting of all of the supporters of Aristide. And of course, being poor and black doesn't help you in terms of our foreign policy as relates to Haiti. And all I'm saying is that we can reform the law, but at this time, let's exercise some compassion. And if we can't take care of all of them in the United States, and there's no reason why we can't, the president should be on the telephone calling friendly countries and asking them to not send these people back to what can be certain death.
Dan Stein, do you disagree?
Well, I think our hearts, everybody's heart goes out to the people of Haiti, and we hope that they're able to restore their democratically elected head of state, Jean-Baptiste Aristide. But at the same time, we do need to support the president at this critical juncture. We do not need, and we cannot sustain, another uncontrolled boat lift situation like what we had in 1980. That boat lift brought 100,000 people to Florida, cost taxpayers $1 billion in the first two years alone. We do need to work to try to sort out those who can show bona fide political persecution, which is a small percentage of them, and at the same time either repatriate them or get the help of the other nations in the area, Belize, Honduras, Costa Rica, to share the load. It's a critical juncture right now, and the signals we send will determine whether or not we are able to manage the situation or wind up with a mass exodus from Haiti, which we cannot sustain.
Congressman Rangel, I just heard you say it doesn't help to be black and poor when it comes to immigration, and we've heard the charges of racism before. You feel that that's an element here?
This is the only country that we have an interdiction treaty with. This is the only country that we go to the high seas, search, look for them, pick them up, and return them to the government. And this is an immoral and almost illegal arrangement that we made with the de Villiers government that was really a dictatorship. But be that as it may, now what we're trying to do is to, after we condemn the contemptuous military, then we take these people and return them to this dangerous situation. I have said, and no one can deny, if these people had come here from Europe, and we're only talking about 2,000 or 3,000 people, we would not turn our backs on them, and we would not send them back to the dangerous situation that everyone agrees exists in Haiti. But, you know, we have organizations now that are saying that once their families have come in under immigration policies that were considered to be liberal and fair then, now we should really bring down the curtain and stop anybody else from coming. But if you take a look at those immigration laws, they run against people of color, and they run against specifically the Haitians. What I'm saying is, whether you're black or white, Jew or Gentile, at this time we should really just have some compassion for these people and open up our doors, open up our hearts, and let them in. We should not go through a Thanksgiving wondering about the lives of these people that are tossed at sea.
Dan Stein, I mean, are we treating them as an exception?
Well, those are excellent sentiments, but the fact is that U.S. law has not been discriminatory. The overwhelming majority of people who've gotten political asylum and even immigration laws have been people who are minorities or racial or ethnic minorities. 100,000 people have immigrated legally from Haiti in the last 10 years. Our laws are not discriminatory. The question is, will the rule of law be sustained? Will this process be orderly? We can run, for example, a screening program in Port-au-Prince to determine who is a legitimate political refugee. We do need to make
An exception?
Well, those are excellent sentiments, but the fact is that